Hi, it's Jane with Scraptastic Yarns Podcast. Today is Monday, August the 27th. I didn't get a chance to film yesterday. Um, Saturday, when we got home, you'll notice my voice was really pretty hoarse. And I thought a lot of that was due to allergies because the ragweed in our area was very high. Um, but by that evening, Sunday morning, I was not feeling well at all. So I got whatever bug was going around. And so the past, yesterday evening, I got home, was feeling bad, went to bed, wound up taking like a 3 or 4 hour nap. Um, and then shortly thereafter, after I got up, I just wasn't feeling like doing anything. So I just kind of lumped around, the house, doing a whole lot of nothing. Um, and then this morning when I got up, I just wasn't feeling real good yet. I'm still not feeling 100%. So I chose just to stay home, not go to exercise like I normally do on Mondays and Wednesday mornings. And I'm just going to take today and tomorrow easy and get to feeling better. I didn't get to take those mats in that I had wanted to take in to the group that is doing the mats for the homeless. So that will just have to wait till next week or later on. I'm not sure if they are actually having another concert this coming Sunday because it is too close to Labor Day. So I don't know, if they had planned on having one. So if not, I may just have to drop them off to the woman in Williamsport where she actually lives. Anyway, yesterday while I was sitting around feeling kind of bad, I found a bag, just a small bag from AC Moore, because I was looking through some yarns. I was trying to grab a bunch of DK weight yarn to make some hats for the babies. And I found this bag sitting in one of the project bags I had. And I found these beads and these and some badge clips, 2 of them. Apparently I purchased this with a project in mind, promptly forgot about it, and I also found the receipt. The receipt was from February 2012. Am I the only one that does it? My husband had gotten to a point at 1 year, it seemed like every time I turned around, I'd buy something to use and I couldn't remember what it was. It was beads or, something to do with beading. And he'd first thing he'd do is he'd go look in the trash, and sure enough, I'd thrown away whatever it was I was looking for. So apparently I had a problem with that year. So I just thought it was kind of funny, Sometimes we do things we don't realize that we're doing. And apparently that year was a bad year for me. I had fallen down the steps on my rear end. About halfway down our steps, we have 13 steps in our stairs. On my rear end, I had broken a piece of the tailbone, and the rest of the tailbone was bruised. Well, the part that was broken healed fairly quickly. But when you bruise a bone, it can take up to 2 years for that to quit hurting. So it constantly felt like I had broken that tailbone. So I was watching Elizabeth of A Crafty Crocheter, her talking about her donut, and I was like, I remember those days. For 2 years I sat on a donut. So donuts are good things. And at the time, we had looked everywhere for a donut. Um, all of these stores were having these filled-in foam things in place of the donut. And we went to, and I want to say it was Giant in Williamsport one time, because we'd stopped to get something on the way home from going out to the mall. And I happened to walk through the pharmacy part and saw that donut. Of course, nowadays you can get donuts again everywhere. I don't know why during that period people were, not selling donuts, because there's a place for donuts. And I'm not talking about the kind you eat. I'm talking about the kind you sit on. So, yeah. I'm kind of all over the place today. I know a lot of you have seen this email from Joann's about the Made in America tax. I have a couple of problems with this email. Mainly because almost everything that Joann sells in their stores is made in another country. And back when my husband was working on his PhD, Dan Rivers Fabric was going out of business, as well as Bonnetex and some of the other things. And they were things that made jerseys and sweatshirts and those kind of things. But Dan Rivers was a very high quality quilting fabric textile, and it was one of the last textiles in the area, and they had moved their operation to China. Joann's couldn't have given a fat rat's ass. I apologize for my language. But part of the reason I have a problem with this is almost all of the fabric that Joann sells comes from China, Vietnam, Taiwan, Korea. They do have a small line fabric that is American made, and you really have to hunt for it. At one point they had it sectioned off, American made fabric, because it was textile that's in the US now. We had hundreds of textiles. North Carolina was one of the largest textile states that we had, and those all disappeared. They used to make socks, hosiery. Even here in Lock Haven there was a silk hosiery factory. And I'm sorry, Joann's. Now all of a sudden you're worried about Made in America tax? The other thing I have a beef with is those of you that do quilt or have been into quilting shops, you realize that there's a difference in fabric between what Walmart sells, Joann sells, and quilt shop sells. Those are graded A, B, and C, C being the worst, B being a mid, and A being top of the line. Joann's, for the most part, sells B fabrics. Walmart sells a lot of C, although their Waverly line is a B line of fabric, which is a better quality. But if you've ever been into a quilt shop that sells top of the line, you can tell the difference in the way that the yarn feels, the fabric feels. When I first got my Bernina sewing machine, I had teased that I was never ever going to become a fabric snob. Yeah. I do still shop for fabrics in Joann's. I have many customers who want product that I can only get through Joann's or through a licensed fabric company, and a lot of those have to do with college fabrics. So I do use Jnwynn's for some of those things. I do use them, like I said, because they do carry a nice B line of Disney and licensed fabrics. Now, some of the other fabrics, like their Quilters Showcase, that is a C line of fabric. Not all of them are, but most of it is. You can tell in the feel of the fabric. A lot of Walmarts, in our Walmart did this at one point. They got rid of the bolts of fabric so that all you had was pre-packaged fabric that came from China. And it really wasn't a good quality of fabric because, like, even the quilting cotton that they called quilting cotton, you could see through it. You could see the thread count was really small. That it really wasn't a quality fabric. But for quite a few months, we raised holy stink with our store about it, and did find out during that time that part of the reason they chose to get rid of the fabric bolts was because that store alone had $250 million loss over a 2-year period. Now what that means is either somebody was walking off with fabric, or someone who was checking the fabric in did not document it properly, or when they were measuring, they over measured. Now that is something that a lot of places will do. They'll give you, a tad more because of the way the fabric is cut or whatever. And that's understandable because you should be able to get a full yard out of a yard of fabric. So we raised a stink in our area about that fabric, and they did bring bolts back. Now it's not the big amount of fabric that they used to have because they did compete with Jnwynn's at that time. But you can get some nice fabrics there at our Walmart now. It's not any of the prepackaged stuff. But like I said, I have a little bit of problem about Jnwynn's making a big stink about this because they really didn't give a flying flip when all the textiles were going out of business in the U.S. They were looking at their bottom dollar line. They were going with the Chinese companies because it's cheaper for them. They make a higher profit. Well, sometimes chickens come home to roost. So, that's my little rant. That doesn't mean that I understand what they're talking about, because many of us who craft and sell our crafts, we purchase, although those of us that are smart do not purchase from Jnwynn's. We purchase someplace where we can get better prices, but some of us do still just shop at Jnwynn's, Hobby Lobby, those kind of places to sell our crafts. That is not a smart business model for any of us, but there are people who do not craft, who do not sew, do not crochet, knit, loom knit, whatever, and they're willing to pay the price to have someone make a baby sweater for them, baby blanket, lovey, whatever, and that's fine. We use what we have around us, but there again, look at where most of your yarns were made. Karen's Simply Soft used to be made in the U.S., in Washington, North Carolina. And Spin Right Yarn Inspirations bought them out. They were going out of business. That's where, can't remember if it's Peaches and Cream or Sugar and Cream was actually manufactured. In that warehouse there, in that yarn textile. But I do know that Karen Simply Soft and Karen Yarns used to come out of that. I don't know if they still do or not. I know that they still have the factory there, but I don't know if they're just using it as an outlet or a store to sell their warehouse of yarn, get it out into the U.S. But, you know, people weren't interested in the American textiles anymore because you can get it cheaper in Turkey, you can get it cheaper in China. You know, we pay the price for that kind of thing. And one of those is, yeah, we're going to pay a higher tax tariff. And you can't blame just Trump for that. A lot of these countries we've been paying high tariffs to begin with, but because you have a president who said, nope, let's not do that, let's do something, open up the playing field, let's actually have a true open market where there aren't tariffs on anybody. But everybody said, no, we can't have that. Can't have you competing in our country with our, goods. We'll never get any sales. It's competition, folks. That's what it amounts to. When you go down to your local grocery store, if they can't compete with the big dogs, they usually go out of business unless they are the only grocery store around. So and I will say this, even with YouTube channels, there's high competition. We face it every day where we go, no matter what. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I did find some more yarns that I had thought I had gotten rid of. This is a nice DK weight, and it'll give me about 2 baby hats, maybe 2.5 baby hats. The only things that I've finished past couple of days are 2 little baby hats with DK weight yarn, and I have a third on the needles. Don't have a whole lot else to say. I think I've ranted and carried on about nonsense for long enough. Tomorrow I am hoping to get a regular podcast out. There won't be a lot of finished items because I've just shown you my finished items. Other than the other mat that I, have done for the homeless. So there won't be finished items, but we'll find something to talk about. I always do. Kind of a chatty Cathy at times. Don't know where that comes from. So I will let you go. I'll see you again tomorrow. And, I did want to say one other thing. Terry of Yarn Joy Podcast with a bunch of other yarny crafters are putting out a line of videos on repurposing of items for craft storage or craft for your craft room. So I am not part of that collaboration, but you can expect to see a few things. So with that, I'll see you again soon, and everybody have a great day. Bye.